Hello and welcome to a new episode of Coptic Las. In today's lecture, we're going to do something a little different in the sense that we're not going to be covering new vocabulary words, but rather talk about things we talked about first quarter in regards to the structure and makeup of the alphabet of the Coptic language. So the Coptic language has 32 letters total, but those 32 letters all came from different spots, as you'll see in this lecture. So before we go into that makeup of the letters and how they came up to be 32, we need to understand something about the last 7 letters of the Coptic language, because those came directly from the ancient Egyptian language, and this is why Coptic is our ancestry language and it's very similar to hieroglyphic. First, you had hieroglyphics, the one you see in temple walls if you ever visited Egypt, and then you get the hieratic text, which is the one used by the priests. At this time, it's much quicker to write than what you draw on the walls of temples. And then Demotic came later for writing laws and scriptures, because you want to write that stuff quickly. Imagine if the pharaoh is talking and someone needs to write after him whatever he's saying. Imagine if they have to draw hieroglyphics. There's no way they're going to catch up. With Demotic, however, you could see how they could write things really quickly. And so if you look at the Demotic and compare this to the Coptic last 7 letters, you'll see that they're strikingly similar. This is not a coincidence. This is because they are directly related. And so to make up the Coptic language and all the sounds of it, which should be all the sounds that are spoken in the ancient Egyptian times, they decided to do the following. Since most of the Egyptian community already know Greek, especially if you're around the Alexandria Delta River area, they thought it would be best to develop a writing system that actually takes advantage of the Greek alphabet and only uses the Demotic for the certain letters that do not have an equivalent sound for them in Greek. And hence he came up with the following idea. They took all of the Greek alphabet and they just put some similar letters to them in Coptic, as you can see in this table. Coptic is on the left side and the right side is Greek. And so if you look at this, you'll notice that 24 of the first 25 letters of the Coptic language all came directly from Greek. So the 24 Greek letters were all imported over to Coptic. They just look a little different. And then number 25 is a specific letter that's not actually a letter, but rather a number called Su, and that's the number 6. And we're going to talk about these letters. So 24 from Greek, Su, 25. And then since the Coptic language is 32 letters, and those 25 sounds or 24 sounds do not cover all the sounds needed for the ancient Egyptian language, they took the rest of the needed sounds from the Demotic and added 7 letters at the end for a total of 32 letters. So after the 5th Coptic letter, we have this Coptic letter called Su that I was talking about earlier. This is a number and it's the number 6. The reason why it's the number 6 is because unlike English now, where you have like a numbering system, or in Arabic where you also have a numbering system, in Coptic they use the letters as numbers. So I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but for example, alpha would be 1, beta would be 2, gamma would be 3, and so on. And then once you get to 10, 20, and 30, it becomes different, but don't bother about all of this. All you need to know is, in order to make numbering systems work correctly and be the same as Greek, they had to add Su to make the number 6. And then that's how it got added part of the alphabet. And we're going to cover this in much, much more details when we actually start learning numbers in Coptic. So yeah, this is slide basically says what I was talking about. They needed to unify the numbering system between Greek and Coptic. And we're going to talk about this deeper later on. All I need you to know is, for the time being, just be aware that unlike English, which has different symbols for numbers, Coptic uses the alphabet for numbering as well, like I said earlier. Okay, now, this is something you probably will not learn anywhere else, and it's usually not covered that much. But Coptic has many dialects, so it's all Coptic, but there is different pronunciation and different pronunciation rules for letters depending on what dialect you're talking about. So there is like 4 or 5 famous one. I only listed 4 of them here, and then I put few more at the end because there is actually a lot more, but those are usually not that famous. And there's 2 that I'm gonna go into details about because those are the very famous one. So there is Saidic, Coptic, and then there is Bohairic Coptic. بالعربي بنسميهم القبط الصعيدي والقبط البحري. So, Sayyid Coptic was spoken between the cities of Asyut and, don't even try to pronounce this. This is just a place on the Minya governorate. So, محافظة المنيا currently. And so that area spoke the Sayyid Coptic. And then there is Bohairic Coptic. This is the language of the geographic region around the Nile Delta. And so this is again prominent in the 9th century. And is a dialect used by the Coptic Church. This is whenever someone tells you, I'm going to teach you Coptic, they're probably teaching you Bohairic Coptic. And I'm no different. My curriculum, the ones that we're learning, is Bohairic Coptic. And the reason why everyone teaches Bohairic Coptic is because this is the one used for liturgies and hymns. So if you want to be able to read liturgical text and hymns, you have to go with Bohairic Coptic. And this is why everyone teaches it. But I want you to be aware that Bohairic is not the only dialect, and that there is Saidic, there is Akhmimic, and Fayyumic, and there's few more. But just know that if someone asks you what dialect of Coptic you're learning, you're all going to be smart and say you're learning Bohairic Coptic, and this is the one used for liturgies and hymns. So congratulations, you know way more than many others. Okay. So now you know what you're learning. And don't ever ask me to teach you Saidi Coptic or any of the other stuff, because it will confuse you a lot, because everything we learned about the pronunciation of the letter is almost the same, so it's not that bad, but there's a few letters that get different pronunciation if it's Saidi Coptic. And so this is when it gets really confusing, but thank God you don't have to know any of that. You only need to learn Bohairic Coptic, and this is will help you read liturgical text, hymns, and everything that you will get exposed to as you go through church services. So since the Bohairic dialect of Coptic has additional sounds not found in Greek, to be specific, 7 sounds, we added 7 letters from Demotic, and that makes up a complete set of Bohairic Coptic alphabet, which is 32 letters. Okay? So you put it all together, you get 24 from Greek, the number 2, and the last 7 from the Demotic, for a total of 32 letters, and that's the Coptic language. With that, I'm done with this lecture. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.